Hey squad, welcome back to Crime Squad Podcast with your host Natasha. This is a Canadian true crime podcast created, researched, and written by yours truly. Right off the bat, I want to say how much I appreciate the engagement on my posts across TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It really helps to get the show out there to reach a broader audience. Today we're diving into a case that sits at the crossroads of history, law, gender, and violence. A case that changed Canada long before the country was ready for the conversation it sparked. In the spring of 1911, a murder in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario would ignite one of the most important legal debates in Canadian history. It involved a young immigrant woman, a lifetime of violence, and a legal system that had no language and no precedent for what she had encountered. This is the story of Angelina Napolitano. To understand this case, it's important to establish who Angelina was and the world she lived in. Angelina and her husband, Pietro, were Italian immigrants. They married in Italy, like many young couples of the time, and left for Canada in search of an opportunity. Canada, in the early 1900s, was a country in transition, industrializing, expanding, and welcoming waves of immigrants who were looking for work and community. The Napolitanos first settled in Thessalon, a small town in northern Ontario. It was quiet and rural, but offered limited opportunities. Eventually, the decision was made to relocate to Sault Ste. Marie, a growing industrial city with a large Italian population. In fact, as of a 2021 census, Italians are the largest ethnic group in the Sioux, making up nearly 20% of the city's population. For immigrants, community means survival in the form of shared language, shared culture, and shared support. But inside the Napolitano home, the community couldn't protect Angelina from what was happening behind closed doors. The truth is, Angelina's marriage was defined by brutality. She suffered at the hands of her husband, Pietro. Pietro was not a nice man. He beat Angelina regularly. Neighbors knew. The community knew. But in the early 1900s in Canada, domestic violence wasn't just ignored. It was considered a private matter, and it was something nobody wanted to interfere with. Angelina married Pietro in Italy in 1899. She was 16 years old. He was older. After immigrating first to New York, then Thessalon, where they lived on Pietro's brother's farm, they wound up in the Sioux, in what was referred to as Little Italy. It was October 1910 when the violence escalated dramatically. Pietro went away for 3 weeks. It's unclear where. Angelina said before he left, he gave her $10 and told her to make more money by performing sex work. To Angelina, this was an impossible ask. She felt he was trying to make her a bad woman. After he was gone for 3 weeks with no contact, Pietro returned to the home. He again told Angelina that she needed to do sex work to earn money. Angelina refused and tried to use their 4 young children in the hopes of gaining mercy from Pietro. Pietro didn't like that Angelina was refusing to do as he told her to, and things escalated into a quarrel. During this particular argument, Pietro attacked Angelina with a pocket knife, stabbing her 9 times. 9 times. He stabbed her in the face, the neck, the shoulder, the chest, and her arms. These weren't superficial wounds. They were deep, disfiguring, and nearly fatal. Angelina survived, barely. After this, she was so despondent about what had happened at the hands of her husband that she walked herself down to the river and tried to drown herself. She was found by police and hospitalized for 3 weeks. Pietro was charged with assault, and his sentence was suspended. He walked free. And Angelina? Well, she was faced to return home to the man who had tried to kill her. I'd like to believe things have gotten better today, but it seems like little has changed from 1910. This incident tells us about the world Angelina lived in. Domestic violence wasn't taken seriously. Women had no legal protection. And the courts didn't see her life as something worth safeguarding. Pietro continued to threaten Angelina, making sure she knew that if she didn't engage in sex work to bring home money, he would kill her. He said he would put her eyes out and stab her again. He told her that he would make her life a living hell so much that she would try to drown herself in the river again, and hopefully this time she would succeed. After the stabbing incident, Pietro's abuse didn't stop. It evolved. Between late 1910 and early 1911, Pietro continued pressuring Angelina to become a sex worker to earn money. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a demand. And when Angelina continued to refuse, the threats escalated. He told her he would beat her. He told her he would kill her. And then the threats took on another level of depravity. Angelina was actually pregnant with her 5th child, and Pietro told her that if she didn't complete sex acts for money, he wouldn't just harm her. He would kill their unborn child. Imagine being trapped in a home with a man who had already tried to kill you and now threatened your unborn baby. The isolation, the fear. It was April 16th, 1911, that Pietro decided to reaffirm for Angelina that he wanted to go out that day. He wanted her to go out that day and earn money by doing sex work. If she didn't, he would beat and probably kill her, which would lead him to kill their unborn child. Apparently, he was so nonchalant about this threat, and it was such a thing for him that he decided he was going to go take a nap. Just fall asleep after threatening to take the life of his wife and child. In the silence of the home, Angelina sat, listening to the sounds of her husband sleeping soundly. Angelina, in that moment, made a decision. It was a decision she believed was the only way to protect herself and her baby. She picked up an axe and she approached Pietro as he slept. She raised that axe and struck Pietro 4 times in the head and neck. He died instantly. And Angelina? Perhaps the most telling, she didn't flee. She didn't hide. She didn't try to cover up what she had done at all. In fact, Angelina walked to a neighbor's home and immediately confessed. This is one of the most important details in the entire case, because Angelina wasn't just acting out of malice. She wasn't plotting, and she wasn't trying to escape justice. She was just trying to survive. Shortly after she was arrested and remanded into custody, her trial began. The entirety of her trial lasted only 3 hours. 3 hours to determine the fate of a woman who had endured years of violence. 3 hours to decide whether her actions were murder or self-defense. 3 hours to weigh the life of a pregnant woman against the life of the abuser. Angelina's lawyers used a defense that hadn't been used in Canada ever before. They presented her case with a defense built on the years of abuse she had suffered. They argued that Angelina acted out of fear for her life and the life of her unborn child. They argued that Pietro's violence created a constant threat, one that didn't disappear simply because he was asleep. But the court wasn't ready. The judge dismissed the context and the jury dismissed the abuse. The law had no framework for understanding domestic violence at the time. And so, Angelina was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by hanging. The fact that she was pregnant didn't matter. The fact that the man she married and built a family with had stabbed her 9 times didn't matter. The fact that she had endured years of terror didn't matter. In 1911, the only fact that mattered was that according to the law, she was a murderer. The public outcry was astonishing. News of Angelina's case spread across Canada, the United States, and Europe. Newspapers ran headlines about the pregnant woman sentenced to hang. People were horrified by Pietro's documented abuse. They were outraged that a woman could be executed under such circumstances. Public sympathy grew rapidly. Ordinary citizens wrote letters. Activists spoke out. Prominent figures petitioned the government to intervene. One opinion piece was published by the Montreal Daily Star on June 24, 1911. The segment was titled, "Willing to Give His Life for Mrs. Napolitano." According to this source, a Dr. Alexander Alto of Ashtabula, Ohio, came forward to say he was willing to give his life for Angelina's. He offered to be hanged in her place on her execution date, which was scheduled for August 9th. Dr. Alto explained himself as a middle-aged bachelor who immigrated to Ohio from Finland. And he was a prominent doctor in Ohio, with his patients traveling from Detroit, Youngstown, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland to be treated by him. Dr. Alto said, quote, "It would only be fair to Mrs. Napolitano for a man to give his life for her, inasmuch as her life is in peril on account of a man's persecution of her, and because men condemned her. I know my old mother would consider that I was honoring her motherhood in dying for Mrs. Napolitano." End quote. The case sparked international debate about domestic violence, women's rights, self-defense, the death penalty, and the failures of the justice system. For the first time, people were forced to confront a question the courts had ignored. What does self-defense look like when the threat is constant? Eventually, the widespread media attention, the opinion pieces, and the various petitions succeeded in their goal. Angelina's death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Her baby girl was born August 2nd, 1911, and placed into the care of Children's Aid. Angelina served 11 years in prison before she was released. Angelina Napolitano's case became a landmark moment in Canadian legal history. Her trial marked the first use of a battered woman defense, decades before that term even existed. It forced the country to confront domestic violence in a way it never had before. Now, her case didn't immediately change the law. But what it did was plant a seed, and one that would grow into future legal reforms, future conversations, and future recognition of the realities of domestic abuse. Angelina lived the rest of her life quietly, far from the headlines that once defined her. But her story remains a powerful reminder of how justice evolves and how one woman's desperate act exposed a truth to the courts could no longer ignore. A century later, the questions raised by Angelina's case still echo. How do we judge actions born from terror? How do we understand violence that happens in the shadows? And how many stories like hers were never told? Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want more long-form true crime storytelling, deep dives into historical cases, and investigations that explore the human side of these stories, make sure you follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. I'll see you in the next episode. Tune in wherever you listen to Crime Squad Podcast. Join the squad.